Still ahead, when you're having a medical emergency, it is a race against time.
At one point, I texted my family on our family chat group the I love you emoji, thinking that this may be the last communication I would have with my family.
Well, coming up, I'll have the story of a local man whose heart stopped multiple times and he lived to talk about it, and the doctor who helped save him.
October is Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month, and Tiffany, you've been researching heart disease and the impact that it has on outlying communities.
I told you last month people who live in rural communities are more likely to develop heart disease and have a higher risk of stroke compared to people who live in urban areas. But this morning, I want to take things a step further. When it comes to cardiac arrest, the American Heart Association says overall, those deaths have dropped significantly in the U.S., but Black and rural communities have not seen the same rate of decline. It's stories like the one I'm sharing with you this morning that doctors hope will help all of us recognize the signs and be ready to take action.
This would have been the location of when I had the second cardiac arrest.
There are moments that can change the direction of your life. For these two, their paths crossed at a critical time. It was in November of 2022.
The pain in my chest was definitely, at this point, raging.
It's a challenge, but it's also one of my greatest privileges.
By the time Dr. Mittal Mayuga saw Korey Loughry at University Hospital's Portage Medical Center, his heart had stopped twice and had to be shocked both times to beat again. Once on the ambulance ride to the hospital, and then again as he was wheeled into the doors of this ER. But that wouldn't be the last time he'd go into cardiac arrest. It happened twice while Dr. Mayuga and her team tried to remove the blockage.
Dr. Mayuga even said that one of the times I almost fell off the table.
Was there ever a point you thought you might lose him?
Yes, there was definitely a time where I thought, I was thinking we have to move as quickly as we can, otherwise he may pass.
Dr. Mayuga says these days they are seeing heart attacks and cardiac arrest happen in younger and younger people. According to the American Heart Association, a heart attack happens when blood flow that brings oxygen to the heart muscle is severely reduced or cut off completely.
Heart attacks can sometimes cause cardiac arrest, but not all cardiac arrests are caused by heart attacks.
Cardiac arrest happens without warning. The heart stops.
It can happen in anybody at any time.
It happened to Dr. Mayuga's grandfather in a hospital back when she was a medical student.
I was the person who had to let the team know that it was okay to stop the CPR, and he eventually passed. And I will always be thankful for that team and for everything that they did for my grandfather.
It was one of the reasons she became a cardiologist, doing everything she can for her patients like Korey. Today, at the age of 53, he's lost 40 pounds, is eating healthier, exercising more, and now working at UH Harrington Heart and Vascular Institute in Portage County.
If what happened to me only benefits me, then it's not entirely, but if it will feel pretty close to being a waste. I want what happened to me to help other people.
Well, statistics show only 10% of people who experience cardiac arrest survive, so Korey is a miracle. He wrote a book about his experiences called I Was Arrested. It's in the gift shop at the hospital, and you can find it on Amazon. Dr. Mayuga says it's important we all learn high-quality CPR to help save someone's life. Now, when it comes to rural communities like Portage County and Heart Health, UH has a program called Food for Life. Doctors and hospital employees donate money or food, and it's available to patients who qualify. It allows them to have access to healthy fruits and vegetables, which could help lead to better cardiac outcomes. And when I think about Korey and his incredible story, he is thankful to everyone that day who helped him get to this point. We're talking about the 911 operator, the people in the ambulance, so many people. And he tells people, like, right, if you feel something, if something feels off, don't dismiss it. That's what he did originally.
Yeah.
And then he finally got the help he needed.
So many times with stories like this, it's people saying, listen to your body, listen to your body. And I think it's also wonderful, too, when people have something like that happen to them and then they want to pay it forward.
Yes.
That it was a gift bigger beyond themselves.
Yes, absolutely
Yeah.
love that.
Great
And remember to learn CPR, too.
Yes.
When it comes to Korey's story, he is so incredible. You know, he really is thanking the whole team of people who helped him survive that day. And he said, you know, something just felt off. And he encourages people, if something feels off, something doesn't feel right, don't dismiss it.
Yeah.
Do something about it.
Listen to your body.
Yes.
We hear that on repeat over and over again, the importance of that. And I love the title of his book, I Was Arrested. Because, right, it makes you think, oh, okay, he got in trouble with the law. Plot twist.
It's catchy.
Cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
Very catchy.
Yeah. Hopefully his story catches on as well.
Great story.
And what's your title here? What do you do?
I'm the practice lead, and so that involves serving and supporting the team that supports the cardiologist here at Portage.
Okay. And so I'm trying to think, is there a way to simplify that? You make sure that the team gets what they need?
Yeah, it's equal parts support and oversight.
Okay. All right. And what brought you to this role? Because that's not what you were doing when you had your health scare.
It definitely is not. When I was handed off from Dr. Mayuga to my physician assistant, Jim, he suggested that I apply for this job. And I read the job description and thought, how do I qualify for this? I don't have any medical background, medical knowledge, but I do know people, and I know how to get things accomplished. And so I felt like maybe that would be some assets that I could bring to the practice. And so far, I think it's been helpful.
Yeah.
So
when you talk about getting things accomplished, I think about the team that responded to your case.
Yeah.
Wow. You had cardiac arrest. You went into arrest 4 times.
Yeah, so I was working actually on a stump grinding job that morning, and it was a fall morning, November of 2022. And on the way home, I began feeling pain in my chest. I dismissed it as indigestion. I didn't think it was a heart attack. That was the last thing on my mind. So I continued home. It was only about a 15-minute drive home. Made some foolish decisions to stop, put some air in a tire, you know, the things you should do in the middle of a heart attack.
Had you felt pain like that before?
Not quite like that, but again, because there's a tendency, I think, for people to be in denial in these moments, and I absolutely was, you want to chalk it up to something less serious. That's, I think, maybe the natural tendency, and that's what I did. So the pain was most closely associated in my mind to indigestion, really, really bad indigestion, which I didn't have on a regular basis, but that's what I thought it might have been. It wasn't until I got home and on the way home, I did begin to wonder if it might be a heart attack. And at one point I texted my family on our family chat group the I love you emoji, thinking that this may be the last communication I would have with my family. And that was a sincere thought.
What goes through your mind, though? I mean, you think this might be your last moment, and you send a text to your family.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it was just I'm as a Christian, I'm comfortable with the idea that I will die and that will not be the end. So I have that hope, and yet at the same time, there's the real tension of I still want to see my family longer. And so our daughter was actually halfway across the country and in A school for the Navy. And so she wasn't close by. Our son was at work in a nearby town, and my wife was at work. So nobody was at home. And I thought, if I'm going to communicate something, now is the time to do it, just in case. So I eventually got home, and I just walked in the door and laid down on the floor. Because again, thinking it was indigestion, I thought I just need to stretch out and get past this. I was even thinking how I might treat it as indigestion. And then I remembered that I have a blood pressure monitor that I could check to see, maybe perhaps differentiate between a heart attack or just indigestion. And I took the measurement with the blood pressure cuff, and I looked at the numbers, and I just couldn't remember what were good or bad numbers. Mm-hmm. I thought, oh, okay, that didn't help. And then I thought, I need to Google heart attack symptoms. So that's what I did. Like most of us do when we don't know something, we Google it.
Why didn't you think to go to the ER?
To drive there? Again, I think I was so convinced that it wasn't a heart attack. And some of that is perhaps the pride of, maybe particularly for us men, I'll throw us men under the bus. There's this tendency to, I want to save face, I don't want to look like I overreacted. And so that was, I think, going through my mind too, foolishly, admittedly. So as soon as I searched for the symptoms of a heart attack, I was sure that was happening. I was sweating profusely. I didn't have, I know sometimes there's pain down an arm, I guess, as a characteristic. I didn't have that, but the pain in my chest was definitely, at this point, raging.
It was getting worse.
It was getting worse, yes. So I dialed 911. The 911 operator was very helpful and efficient with her questions. And we live very close to the both fire stations in Kent, so I knew they would get to me quickly, and they did. Less than 5 minutes, they were at the house, coming in, helping out. And as I was put in the ambulance, I knew where I'd be going, here to UH Portage Medical Center. I've been here other times, having grown up in the area. I knew I'd get here quicker in the ambulance than I typically would. And about halfway there, I remember looking out the back window and kind of spotting where I was at, and then I was gone. I came to with this very odd feeling of euphoria, and there was kind of a double-layered perspective to everything I was looking at. The inside of the ambulance, the medic, there was a double layer. It was very odd. I felt very uncomfortable with that. And then I have kind of no recollection, or very little recollection, until I arrived here at the hospital. The next memories I have was of this flurry of activity of men and women trying to attach me to things, communicating things to me, wheeling me to what I would later find out was called the cath lab, the catheterization lab. And that's where the team in the cath lab, led by Dr. Mayuga, were doing the work to save my life. I later found out all of what happened during that time, because of course going through it, I didn't know what was happening. And they said that I went into cardiac arrest the first time in the ambulance, the second time just inside the emergency room doors here, and then twice more in the cath lab, on the cath lab table. Dr. Mayuga even said that one of the times I almost fell off the table after being defibrillated. So that was kind of the whole experience of that day.
Have you ever heard her talk about your case in that way? Like, I asked her if she thought she was going to lose you.
I didn't, and it made me tear up. Your question itself got me, and then her response as well. In my mind, I felt like I didn't know that I would survive. I felt that it was in question, but it's hard to say from the medical side. That's the side that I, of course, have no experience with. That's her whole experience. So it was tough to hear that, but it was touching.
Why do you think you're here today?
Well, for a number of reasons. I go back all the way to the 911 operator. She was that first vital bridge to the medic team of the Kent Fire Department. And then they were the next vital bridge to get me here to UH Portage Medical Center and into the cath lab, where Dr. Mayuga was able to do the thing that would actually open up the blockage. So I had 100% blockage in what's called the left anterior descending artery, sometimes called a widowmaker heart attack, because the likelihood of survival without outside intervention and immediate outside intervention, as I understand it, is death. It's sometimes referred to as clinical death to experience cardiac arrest. So I'm certainly here because of them, and I certainly see the Lord's provision in all of it as well.
And it almost sounds like, you're here and you're sharing your story with others. Why?
A number of reasons. I initially wrote a post for social media after it happened, just to share with family and friends. And I had the weird thought to title it. And so I titled it, "I Was Arrested," because I knew friends and family would see this and go, "Wait, what?" and actually read it, because it was kind of a lengthy post. So I shared the experience of the day, and that I shared maybe a couple days after the event itself. And I initially shared it because I wanted to somewhat process what happened, because it was absolutely a challenge mentally to understand what had happened, experiencing clinical death. I wanted to thank the people who saved my life, without a doubt. I knew that they were directly involved. They were critical to my having literally survived. And I also wanted to get the word out to people in a way that would perhaps help somebody else bridge that gap of denial to taking action.
And so taking action too, you shared it on social media, but now you have this book. Talk about your book.
Yeah. About 6 months into the experience, well, a few months before that, I suppose, as time was going on, I began to understand how, in a sense, unlikely it was that I survived. And I also began to understand that my side of the experience was different from a medical person's perspective, having actually experienced it. I think of it maybe like a meteorologist might know everything there is to know about a hurricane, but when they're standing in the midst of it, they probably have a new set of eyes about what that's like. It was kind of like that. So I experienced this. I didn't do the treatment, I experienced it. And I wanted to take advantage of that kind of rare perspective on this whole experience and share it with people. I actually had this thought that if I die again, and there's I forget what the percentage chance is, after experiencing cardiac arrest, there can be issues again that can happen. And I felt like I have a relatively unique vantage point to share with people that I would hope, again, accomplish some of those same purposes, thanking people who are involved in saving people's life, getting the word out to help prevent people from going through this, and again also to process it further, because it needed continual processing for a long time. So the one thing that I want to mention specifically is that the mental side of, at least again what I experienced, is somewhat underemphasized, I would think. And I wanted to be very transparent, which I tried to be in the book. It's a very candid memoir of what that was like, including one experience with my wife where I just was not thinking straight it felt to me like a pretty dramatic and challenging way that she was very gracious about, but was a challenge. And I wanted to share all that so that people would know, if you go through something like this or something similar to this, there's no reason to be ashamed to get help. I want to encourage people to take the advice of the medical profession in terms of cardiac care, in terms of nutrition, in terms of sleep. Sleep is a major factor with all of this, and also in terms of mental health care. So I really want to encourage people to take those things seriously.
So you believe, do you believe you died 4 times?
Clinically died, yes. I tell people, I've tried to summarize it in my mind as this. I don't know that I can say that I know what death is like, but I do know what it's like to die.
So tell me about your life since. So you lost 40 pounds. You changed your diet.
I did, yeah. Some of that initially was just after the arrest in the ICU. I would look at everything around me, and I felt like there was a 50-50 chance that it was real. It was very difficult to understand what was actually real and what was illusory. When they brought me the first tray of food, I just looked at it, again with the same mindset, but also with kind of a bit of an edge, thinking, you're part of what put me here, as if the food was at fault, not my eating habits. And it wasn't bad food, they brought nutritious food. So that was a challenge for a while in terms of the weight loss, but then I adopted the heart healthy diet pretty quickly, and within about 4 months I lost 40 pounds and have been able to keep that off with staying on that kind of a diet and incorporating exercise in a more routine way and that kind of thing. So,
how are you feeling now?
I feel really good. There are still struggles in some respects, emotionally sometimes. It doesn't happen on a daily basis like it did for months afterwards, but it happens sometimes. It's a challenge to relive the events of this. But again, in my mind, if what happened to me only benefits me, then it's not entirely, but if it will feel pretty close to being a waste. Mm-hmm. I want what happened to me to help other people. Otherwise, it just won't feel adequate.
Is there anything else you want to say or you think it's important for people to know?
I think the biggest message I would want to give to most people is to take those symptoms that you're feeling seriously, to not ignore them, to not excuse them away, but take them seriously. If you're wrong, it can be life-threatening, obviously. So knowing what is happening is not what we're trained in as just your average citizen. That's what the medical personnel are trained in. So seek them out. And also, again, the thing I mentioned about just being willing to be upfront about the mental challenges that something like this can lead to. That's been a really important thing that I've tried to get across to people, is that if you're feeling, in the sudden cardiac arrest community, of which I've joined a little bit in terms of a group, this is a very common experience. Just trying to process what happened is very, very challenging. Life seems completely upended by it, and there's a lot of uncertainty about what a person can handle and do after something like this, because the stakes are obviously so high, and nobody knows it better than somebody who's experienced sudden cardiac arrest. So for them to seek help and get the kind of help that they need mentally is as important as physically.
Well, thank you very much. I
You're welcome.
appreciate it.